everyone, and welcome to PowerCat AI webinars, helping you guys build an AI-ready organization. So I'm one of your hosts. My name is Ashley. I'm going to be in the background, helping with polling and in the chat and things like that. And then for the topic today, which is a part 2 of our last session on generative orchestration, this time we're talking about enterprise-grade agents. We have Karima Kanji touched in. I'll let her introduce herself.
Hi, everyone. Such a pleasure to be here with you guys to talk about generative orchestration again. My name is Karima Kanji. I am a colleague of Remy who did part 1, and I am also a solution architect on Copilot Studio, and super excited about today.
Okay, without further ado, welcome to Balancing AI and Control in Copilot Studio, Generative Orchestration Part 2, Enterprise Grade Design. Karima, I leave it to you.
Thanks so much, Ashley. Let me share my screen. And here's the agenda. Do you see it?
I see it.
Amazing. All right, let's get to it. Just organize my screen a little bit, and then I'm all yours. All right. So I gave a little introduction to myself. So I have been really lucky to work in this conversational AI space at enterprise grade for many, many, many years. And I've seen an evolution. And these days, I'm working within the Copilot Studio product team and really seeing the pace of innovation. There's so much going on. There's so much vocabulary coming at you. So many different things mean the same thing. And so I'm here to disambiguate a little bit and really give you a little bit of insight on the kinds of conversations we are having with our biggest enterprise grade customers who really want that AI transformation at scale, but they have enterprise grade concerns. And so, what we're going to talk about is we're going to continue what we learned about generative orchestration last time. If you missed it, that's okay. I think I'm going to cover the basics in a completely different way. And so, hopefully, you will get a lot of value out of it. So I'm going to start with doing a little bit of an intro on generative orchestration, and I'm going to do it from the point of view of how are we going to maximize the ROI of generative orchestration? Because we see the features, okay, but what do we do with them, and how much benefit are they going to bring us? And that is going to lead us directly to, well, if I do something big, I'm going to need to figure out what kind of AI we have in Copilot Studio, how much control I can have over it, and how my business processes are going to work if I bring in AI, because I have so many rules in my enterprise. So we tackle those issues a lot. And so I thought I would give you a big picture thinking about this. And then we'll do a design deep dive. We're going to make a concierge agent, and we'll talk about how we go about starting and building in a generative orchestration fashion. All right, so let's get started. All right. So as I said, in generative orchestration, we have an LLM orchestrator that interprets a user requests, and then it selects actions and topics and tools and knowledge. And it's an AI brain that can chain multiple tools and ask clarifying questions and produce unified responses, all without much explicit scripting for any scenario. So you saw a lot of the features for that. So today we're going to put it all together from this enterprise point of view, where we ask, well, how am I going to harness this generative orchestration power while maintaining this level of control that I need for my business? Because my large enterprise needs reliability and compliance and predictability in AI. I know it sounds like a contradiction, but it's understandable. And we understand that too. And so we do help you balance AI autonomy with governance in agent design. So the focus is really on agent design, not on governance, not on knowledge. It's really orchestration and agent design. And by the end of the session, you're going to understand the three critical areas where we dial up or down the AI, which is in either understanding our user inputs, uh, uh, executing our business processes, and delivering outputs. All three of those have different stakeholders and different requirements. And so I'll have some live demos and analogies to illustrate these best practices. So I do want to zoom into understanding the user because as I work with our largest enterprise grade customers and they're on this AI transformation path, I do encounter the bot experts who have been doing this for a long time. And these companies have really been at the forefront of conversational AI. They have high traffic transactional agents serving their customers, and they really require a very dedicated data science practice in order to keep all that carefully curated intent data up to date. So when we show them generative orchestration, and that with no data and no training, they seem to reach this holy grail of intent recognition coverage. It's a really good starting conversation point, right? Because when you see an agent where you can actually ask a question like this, it's not about the pieces and the little technology and how fast you can design. It's the fact that you can actually ask a question that sounds like this. Track my shipment number C31, blah, blah, blah. No, actually track MRT something instead. In fact, track both. Will it be raining at the package's destination city? And what is the latest model of Surface laptop? So just a brain dump of everything you're thinking. And even the hardest multi-intent problem is cracked. Meanings are seemingly extracted. The agent truly meets the customers where they are. And when you want an improvement, it doesn't require retraining. It's done using common sense edits to some descriptions. So think of that instant value added due to the enormous coverage range. Even if you don't add new intents, even if you don't use AI knowledge in your old agent design, even if you don't perfectly tune it to improve the recognition rate percentage, the sheer volume of new calls that will be understood and routed to existing intents shows immediate value potential. So we do get people's attention right away. So I can totally demo this use case later, but let's move forward and see how much time we have towards the end when we're actually working in the product, and you can make requests and I'll demo whatever you need. So again, we are still talking about understanding natural language user input. And this was the traditional conversational AI research view. And we understood that humans change their minds a lot and that the ideal language understanding system was imagined to have these features. And some of these features had remained elusive till the advent of LLMs. We had cracked a whole bunch of them, right? But generative orchestration covers all of these use cases out of the box with the touch of a button, pretty much, right? So if you're going to replace utterance curation and model training with just prompt tweaking, the development effort takes a fraction of the time. There's more savings. It makes total sense to embark on this journey. So everyone is, of course, excited to be stepping into the AI era of generative orchestration, right? So now the developers and the designers start taking a closer look, and they see that actually generative orchestration is not just a supercharging intent detector. There are multiple AI workloads at play. So we can see them in practice and see what I mean by all, like there's a lot on this slide. So it's better to just try a few things in practice. Okay, so let me get a demo up, and then we can talk about what you just saw. So what I have here is an agent called my coffee concierge. When I start this agent, and I just restarted it a couple minutes ago, the first thing it did um, is it said, "Hey, I'm your coffee concierge, and I can help you with your orders." And like it proactively just starts and it talks to you. And if you have an order, it's going to tell you, "Hey, you have a pending order." And if you have an order that has been shipped a while ago, it's actually proactively going to tell you, "Hey, your order shipped last month. Do you want to reorder the same thing?" So before you even say anything, it's ready to talk to you. All right, so the bot experts over there are going to say, "Hey, that's going to cost me money if my bot starts running every time somebody comes to a web page." There's plenty of use cases for this. And the first use case that comes up is for phone systems, right? When you have an agent in a phone system, you often want to be proactive. So when you call the pharmacy and just by your phone number, they know which prescription you want to renew and they just ask you for a yes and no question, how good is that experience, right? And so we totally can proactively start if we wanted to. So let me ask one of these giant questions to that agent. Check on the status of my order. Can you guys see? Shall I make this bigger? Is that good?
Yes.
All right. Check on the status of my order, ID, number this. No, actually check that one. In fact, just check both. What are their origin cities? And is it raining there? And how often do people change the filter on their coffee machine? And can I order one for Dave? So let's see how it starts handling that. And what we have is an activity map. And the activity map will tell you what it's thinking. So right away, a whole bunch of boxes showed up. That's because it anticipated, "Hey, I think I'm going to need to call some sources, an update agent. I'm going to have to search some things. I'm going to maybe need to place an order." So it's just anticipating the work that it needs to do to fulfill this. And it's going and doing some searches and doing some things in parallel while we wait. So it's thinking. It does take a moment sometimes. Uh, and I think, depending on the underlying model that it's using, it'll take more time, less time, be smarter, be even smarter. So let's see what happens here. It does take a few moments. And while it's working, I wanted to show you a little bit what the overview page of my agent looks like. So let it work. And let's go check out the overview page. It's actually pretty simple. It has 3 lines in the instruction, which are pretty general instructions, like, kind of be professional, make sure you include details when somebody asks you a question. It has a couple of sources of knowledge that are available. If I click on knowledge, I have these child agents, and there's a couple of sources of knowledge available to different child agents. And then I have 2 flows and a connector that I'm using as AI tools. And here are my sub agents that are order update agent and product choice helper agent. And I have a couple of topics that are created. And we will slowly go through all of these as we go. I just wanted to see where this is at and what it's doing. So it is in the process of checking the status. Oh, it's checking 2 orders at the same time. And it hasn't found the status. I think my agent needed to be reset before we started. What do you think? I think it's a little bit disconnected. So I'm going to start it again and I will come back to this. I think I may have refreshed it too long ago. So what happens when I refresh it? It goes and starts working right away because it has a workload when it starts. And let's come back to this. I'm going to ask it this question, and I'm going to move on a little bit, and then we'll come back to it, right? Because when we start, it right away knows that the person is Carol, and we are checking on statuses, and I'm trying to see why things were working 10 minutes ago, and it looks funny right now. Bear with me. All right, demo gods, I tell you. Let's get back to the presentation, and I will tell you the gist of what I was talking about here. Okay, you saw the question that I asked, right? That was a long question. When we ask that question, we see that there's many intents that I'm asking about, right? I wanted to do multiple actions. There's a new plan created on the fly. And so we know that generative orchestration isn't just an intent recognizer, it's an AI planner. Sometimes it's going to run a conditional and it's going to add an extra step in the plan depending on agent instructions. No code is written for that. So the orchestration is also instructable. Now, when some information is missing, like if I want to place an order and I say what I want, but I don't say the quantity, the orchestrator is going to stop its plan and ask me a question. So, and it might ask a different variation of that question every time. Nobody's written that question. It also allows me to answer the question in whichever way I want. I can write my quantity in letters, or I can put a number, and it's going to figure it out, and it's going to turn it into a proper input for my action. Nobody's written a parser for my words. And so generative orchestration turns out that it's also a question writer and an input collector. All right, so once the plan finishes, and then it outputs this fully custom message containing the result of every step, well, no template was written for that answer. It just figured itself out, right? If I had put a bit more instructions and said, make it more point form or more paragraph form, it would have changed it. But there's no explicit template. And when an action returns a ton of outputs, the orchestrator is going to reason over all that collected data, and it's not going to throw all that data to me in the output. It's actually going to check what the question was, check all the data retrieved, and it's going to understand it, make some choices, and formulate an answer that just contains reasonably the relevant information to the original request. So generative orchestration is also an output message compiler, right? So if you have like 12 outputs and you get all sorts of information, you're going to get the answer that you were looking for from that output. And this is all still out of the box, right? Now I can ask follow-up questions. So if I get an answer about an order and it tells me what was ordered, I can ask a follow-up question and say, well, how many of them were ordered? When was it ordered? So it's contextual and it's multi-turn. It remembers the context and it lets you ask that follow-up question without repeating the entire question. All right, we're going down that list. Are you all following? AI planner, instructable, question writer, input collector, output message compiler, contextual, multi-turn. It also, reasons over all the tool's capabilities and answers using the most relevant outputs. But if I change languages, guess what? It's multilingual also. And so if all my workloads are generative and I pick a different language, it will just start talking to me in that other language, even though my sources are still in English. So that is amazing. We've gotten all the way to multilingual. And wait, we know that it also has some precise product information that comes from my website that gets incorporated without my curating any Q&As. So it's also a grounded answering service. And then what if I drop in another agent? Well, now it becomes a multi-agent orchestrator. And when the second agent is called, it's also creating its own plan and its own multi-step conversation until it's done and hands it back off to the main agent. And so we've gotten all the way down to multi-agent orchestrator. So now that we've spelled it all out, that's a lot of AI dimensions to add in an enterprise grade business critical application. And enterprises are used to having very, very strict rules and approval cycles for some of these items and very low tolerance for variation in business critical processes, right? So today's presentation is all about addressing those enterprise grade concerns, about balancing control with AI in generative orchestration with all these things at stake. So sometimes we find a really nice, juicy, complex case that we work on for a few months and it gives them like a 10% boost in value. How happy should they be? Those who really succeed are the ones who use agents on an area of value that's not covered by their processes at all, right? And they go beyond automation or process replacement to actually partnering with agents as business SMEs to create new value. Or they realize that Copilot Studio, whoa, what just happened? You saw what's coming next. Or they realize, right, that Copilot Studio doesn't just require restarting your processes from scratch. It doesn't tell you to replace all your tools. It helps you orchestrate entire functions using a lot of your existing tools and your data to cover more ground than before. And to do that tedious follow-up that's often not worth putting that extra personnel on, right? So now to think about your use cases, you can start with places where your core business SME says, hey, we don't actually check every, we don't analyze every, we don't contact every, we have a supervision bottleneck here, right? We would really like to have more SMEs here, and we don't follow up on every, return request or something like that, right? So those are naturally going to be high value, high interest use cases for agents. Time for an analogy, guys. So to come up with these best agentic use cases for a business transformation, I was having this conversation with my colleague Taiki the other day, and he dropped this analogy and he calls the orchestrator the chef. And then he moved on in the conversation, but I thought, wow, what a good analogy. I wonder how far I can take this analogy, right? So I'm thinking, okay, imagine a cafeteria where the ingredients are like the knowledge and the appliances for heating and chopping are your tools. And they have like one warm dish that they make the same way every time by pouring canned tomato sauce on spaghetti with some seasoning and chopped vegetables. So that's a few steps. And that's kind of like what a topic does. It's super reliable, always predictable. Sometimes they'll bring in an AI tool, I mean, a cook, who instead of using a mandolin to cook the slices the same way every time, he's going to cut the veggies into creative shapes. And that kind of resembles classic orchestration with the occasional AI tool. Classic orchestration. You've got a topic that makes the same dish every time. You've got your tools like the oven. You've got your knowledge like your ingredients. I think the analogy holds, right? I'm open to challenges, but I'm going to run with it, right? So let's think about this, right? Let's say they've made some money and they decide, hey, we want to invest in a chef. All right. So now we're getting into the generative orchestration analogy. They just got a chef. And, um, you know, this is like, is anyone thinking about migrating a classic bot to generative, like something you already have that you just want to migrate? Let's look at that, right? Let's say that this lunch counter or this cafeteria, they want to be really conservative and they're just thinking about a lift and shift strategy. They ask the new chef to make the same spaghetti dish, right? And so they have this amazing new chef and they tell him, you know what, let's start by seeing how you do with the same dish. But, they know that, okay, we have a chef, so we shouldn't have him use a canned sauce. That would be the waste of a chef. So they ask the chef to please make the sauce from scratch. All right, so once is classic orchestration. You've got your knowledge, your tools, and your topic. Okay, click once more. Now these guys got themselves a chef, and they told the chef, okay, make the same pasta dish, but make it from scratch. And now that they've been doing that, and the chef is pretty smart, they didn't need to give him any instructions. He can make a spaghetti sauce, and the dish is pretty good. And now they're wondering, what value are we getting from this chef? The dish is pretty good. It probably sells 10% more than before, even after accounting the rare mistakes like, burning the sauce sometimes, occasionally, rarely. It happens in a non-deterministic, he's human. And so they still get value. However, was this migration truly worth the trouble? The chef transformation was supposed to grow their business tenfold, not 10%. That's what we say about AI transformation too, right? So they rethink their scope and they allow intelligent expansion of use cases. They allow the chef to make different Italian dishes. So far, you'll notice that we haven't dwelled on expanding the tools and knowledge. We're not changing the slide at all. We're still keeping everything the same. And we know that equipping the kitchen was fundamental, but the real results are really created by harnessing the orchestrator. Harnessing the chef. Okay, so let's say that the bigger menu really worked out great and they want to expand again. This time, they want a separate vegan menu. Click again, please. So now they hire a vegan chef to work out of the same kitchen. Yeah?
Not sure.
Yeah, click, please.
Okay, sure.
Yeah? So now they hire a vegan chef to work out of the same kitchen, but she's going to need to isolate some of her tools to avoid data leakage. To avoid cross-contamination. And that's just like the inline agent or the child agent feature of Copilot Studio. And now, if they decide to partner with the bakery next door to expand their dessert menu, that's like calling a connected or external agent. So click once more. And now you have connected agents, right? So at this point, you're at a stage where the customers can order a classic or a fancy pasta dish. They can order multiple items. They can order vegan dishes and desserts, along with those prepackaged snacks that are still available. So this analogy has been really holding well so far, right? Even if we say that, hey, customers can't customize their prepackaged deterministic items that come out of the topics, but they can customize their orchestrated vegan order. So pretty good analogy so far. That leaves us with that top right corner with the triggers and autonomous agents. And what do you think I'm going to cook up for that analogy? Well, imagine in the menu, there's a family takeout special. And whenever that's ordered, the chef will cook a predefined set of items from around the menu. That takeout special is an autonomous trigger that will yet again increase their total sales. Okay, click once more. It turns out that this kitchen already had all the tools and ingredients, and they just needed a chef to orchestrate a larger menu to get their 10 times value. In the same way, Copilot Studio SaaS AI tools expand the reach and the coverage of your agents much beyond the statistical uncertainty that using AI brings. But for those cases where no uncertainty is acceptable, Copilot Studio still provides you with canned sauce. With topics. Next slide, please. All right, so let's dive into Copilot Studio's AI technologies. So there's really three main types of AI services in Copilot Studio. We have generative orchestration. That's a top-level function. That's the chef. Click, please. So that's the AI service that we're really going to be focusing on. And click again, please. And then the other two AI services are going to be like tools that are leveraged by the orchestrator's planner. All right, where are we at? I am just, sorry, I'm just trying to figure out where we're at. All right, you can click again. It's hard to orchestrate my two screens. All right, so now with knowledge, it's also a top level feature. You guys know a lot about it, and it is used to help generative orchestration to ground it in your structured or unstructured business data, and it augments your business processes selectively, right? And if you click once again, then you have AI prompts, and AI prompts are your traditional one-shot call to LLM. It's a tool that your chef can use, your orchestrator can use, and you get to control the whole LLM prompt, contrary to knowledge, which is heavily guardrailed to just do RAG grounded answers. So now you have this range of AI tools, and it's really important to understand that these are really distinct AI services. They all serve a function, and they need to be harnessed together. All right, so now let's zoom in to the generative orchestration service. Go ahead and click. Just trying to keep up with you here. All right, so when you get into the three types of control for generative orchestration, because we really want to look at generative orchestration. The crux of enterprise design is, how do we control an agent? How can an enterprise make sure that they expand their business with AI, but they still follow their complex business processes and rules, right? And so when you have deterministic processes, you can have very full control because you're the orchestrator. And so when you're using generative orchestration, Copilot Studio still provides you with that deterministic control, because it's always, even before LLMs came about, Copilot Studio has been feature rich in allowing you to control your own orchestration, right? So all of that is available. And so when LLMs were first announced, we could just brute force accelerate the consumption of any external AI tool, because we had the orchestration layer around it, and we could deploy an external service without additional past provisioning and programming of orchestration, right? So Copilot Studio's deterministic pieces are very feature rich. And really, if you're not familiar with them, do look at deterministic design patterns. It really is part of your entire strategy. So look into topics and flows and variables and calling functions, because that will come in handy in different places. All right, click once more. On the other end of the spectrum, you then get the fully LLM based, out of the box generative orchestration, like in that first demo. Now, what does that leap from classic to generative entail? It's a shift in thinking. Think of the knowledge and tools that you have, and by allowing them to be generatively orchestrated at the top level, you're turning them into truly conversational tools. So, what do you do when you do that? The first thing you do is you tell them their purpose. You give them descriptions, and it's not about writing pseudocode or passing JSONs or telling it where it came from and where it's going. You really need to assign the purpose to every tool, and that's how it turns into an AI tool. And so you describe the tool as it stands, and you let the orchestrator use that tool in a common sense way and decide what goes before and what goes after. That's the starting point, right? And then you expand the reach of your agent from there. Now, I'm not really advocating for a free for all, chuck everything over the fence to AI. We have a lot of ways, even when you are purely using the orchestrator, to guardrail using instructions. And you can judiciously add them to have more control. You can even add instructions to, like, some of your input descriptions to say, oh, make sure you do this after this. And so that's why understanding that guardrails are important, we're also going to spend a lot of time talking about hybrid control. So next slide, please. So for hybrid control, can we really combine the two types of control to find that sweet spot of LLM augmented with deterministic overrides and interceptions? Is it really possible? Like, how does that hybrid work? Well, you're in luck because in Copilot Studio, we've actually added even more levers that are made especially for generative orchestration. So we have overrides in tool configurations, and that can change the direction of a plan. And it does something scripted in the middle of an AI plan. And we know that it will always be applied. Every time something happens, in AI, something deterministic is going to go and happen in a topic. So mostly we have these overrides in inputs and in outputs. So you can specify formats of inputs. You can assign variables. You can use the concept of entities. So you can constrain things to be numbers or to be regex entities. We even have some conditions so that I can say, hey, the quantity can't be more than 20. And this is what you should do if they enter an order for a quantity of more than 20. But it's in a deterministic way. It'll happen every time. And we're not relying on you to write that instruction. We are giving you a lever for it, right? So plan for using that level of control in your instructions, plan for using the configurations. And then the other thing that you can do is when you're writing instructions, we actually allow some power effects formulas. So you can actually point to the exact tool that needs to be used so that your orchestrator isn't always guessing on what tool to use. Click, please. Interception. So you've heard the word triggers a lot, and there's a couple of types of triggers. We've been talking about autonomous triggers a lot lately, but for those who are familiar with Copilot Studio, traditionally we've always had triggers, and those triggers trigger topics, and we've added brand new triggers so that you can inject some predictable control into a topic. So if my screen sharing and demo had been working and I hadn't had internet issues, you would have seen that in my coffee demo, my answers are super sassy and there's always puns included at the end that are very relevant to the whole answer. And that's because I've intercepted every plan that's generated and I've used an AI prompt on them to guardrail them and to say, hey, don't talk about other companies. If you're not talking about Coffee Co., don't talk about it. And also add a contextual sassy comment at the end. And so that's why I can pretty much trust the output that's coming out of my agent because it's not going to talk about other companies. It's only going to talk about Coffee Co. And it's always going to add a funny pun at the end, and it's going to keep my persona. We also have other kinds of interceptions, like, well, once you've intercepted and you want to continue the plan, can you do that? Yes. If you want to end the plan, sometimes we love that Copilot Studio knows about context, but sometimes you really wanted to forget the context. And so you can, without restarting your session, forget the context, clear some variables, collect some feedback. And so there's really these new features that allow you to make generative orchestration work for you in a hybrid controlled way, right? So now you can call the topic and use your generative orchestration can be used to call a topic. But we also have a new feature where a topic can call the generative orchestrator. So now you can kind of go both ways and really have a flexible design for control when you need it, AI when you need it, and not do any extra work that you don't have to. All right, let's go to the next slide. Let's see where we are here. I am just trying to follow along with you guys here. Okay, so this is a super important slide, right? Because these are the three areas of impact that you're going to be talking about now. Like now that we've talked about the features, we've talked about the AI features that we have, the control features that we have. How are you going to fit all of that into a conversation into your business leads areas of impact? And we intrinsically understand that. We, working with customers, we get a lot of experience in that. So this is where I thought I would, organize that information for you so that you can have those conversations internally. So, look, we do encourage you to use the range of what all generative orchestration can do, right? So, uh, the and we do encourage you to use the range of control versus AI. There's no directive that says go for all for AI, like not yet, right? And so that need for control is valid. We understand it, and so a lot of SaaS choices are available. And in if you look at in general in the ecosystem, as LLMs get better and better at achieving their results, you also see that what LLMs are doing under the covers are using more and more code generation because everybody wants to infuse some determinism into their workloads. So valid to want control. So our goal for you is really going to be for you to be able to come in with eyes wide open and use the best technology for your use cases, bring that level of control closer to the SMEs without needing to pass through a very, very long development cycle. And really, your agent should resemble and work really closely with a full business function. That's where you get a lot of value out of it. Next slide, please. So we can dive into understanding the user. And now you're going to see a little bit of the vocabulary repeating because now you're equipped to use it in the context of the sliding scale of control using specific feature examples. So, what does it mean to have full control when you understand the user? You're still using generative orchestration, so it's not classic. So, where is that control and understanding the user in generative orchestration? Well, when you're inside a topic or when you are deciding how you're going to understand a input, you have the concept of entities. And entities allow you to constrain and use a much more constrained model and a constrained area for the range of things that you accept from a user. You get to use that question node to selectively, in certain spaces where the context is really obvious for the user about what you're asking for, to ask that question so that the user is in the right mind frame to to answer in a way that you are ready to understand. And then, of course, for the IVR systems, we have DTMF, which are super, super deterministic. On the other side of the range, for full AI control, you have your input instructions and you have your main instructions. And then when you have autonomous agents, you have instructions in your trigger prompt, right? You don't just put a trigger and hope that your autonomous agent is going to work. Your autonomous agent also needs some sort of a trigger prompt that's going to start its work. And adding some instructions in there that are very, very specific to your autonomous use case is really, really appropriate to get that right level of AI control in an autonomous agent. Now, how do you achieve hybrid control in understanding the user? This is where you can harness those tools like AI prompts. This is where generative answers and knowledge comes in, where you selectively use it to enhance your understanding of exactly what the user wanted. We are now allowing so many modifications to knowledge and the RAG patterns to help you understand the user better, to have more of a range or less of a range of what you allow the user to say. And then we have this concept of query rewrite, which means that if the user expects you to understand context when you are sending the user's request to an external system, we have a node that's going to rewrite the user's question with context before you send it to the external system, so that you're not sending a question like, does it have a touch screen? Because how would any external system answer that? You need some context to add to that question. And so the query rewrite node can do that for you. So a lot of ways to add hybrid control to understanding a user. Okay, and understanding was already the selling point of generative orchestration. So that was more for you guys. All right, next slide. All right. And then there is the outputs that we give to the user. And this becomes really interesting because understanding the user means meeting the user wherever they are. And everybody buys into meeting the user wherever they are. The user doesn't get wrong information. We get more information about what the user wants. It's a win-win-win. But when you're talking about outputs to the user and you say, oh, AI is going to write some of these outputs, some people in your organization are going to be like, wait a minute. The legal team is going to be like, what? Are you really going to let AI write the question to ask when they are buying some sort of a financial plan? Are you going to let AI confirm a transaction? Are you going to let AI write? Include the terms of a contract when a transaction is made? Maybe we need to intercept generative orchestration at certain places and rewrite the messages that we want to write. So we do offer full control and overrides. Every single tool for their inputs is allowed to override the question that it asks to be able to collect that input. So if you say this input collects the quantity of the product, the system will ask, oh, how many of these do you want? Or it'll ask, what is the quantity? But if you want to exactly script that question to be asked the exact same way, and you say, please say the number of things you want. It has to be a number between 0 and 20. If you order more than 10, your order will take longer. If you want to say all of those things in your question, you can override that question, still benefit from generative orchestration in the tool, right? So you don't have to move to topics if you want to override questions. You can also do some pure retrieval for outputs to the user. Sometimes you want to go and get information from a document, and you do not want knowledge to summarize it for the user. You want that extract to be pasted verbatim to the user. So that's not knowledge, that's actually retrieval, and we're actually enabling you with that too. In terms of AI control, you want to be able to give instructions for how the AI should write outputs, how it should be grounded in knowledge before it answers on certain things. So we have some AI control, we're adding more AI control so that you can feel good about what the agent is going to write out to the users, because what the users see, what comes in front of their eyes directly affects the results and the user experience and your legal bindingness. And so this is why we have full control, AI control, and hybrid control depending on what kind of workload it is. You can intercept once again the orchestration and rewrite your output with an AI prompt like I did, so that none of my answers would talk about my competitors. You can use inline agents to constrain the tools over which you act, so that those inline agents, as they become powerful, they can be in charge of a really, really narrow function and do it really, really well. So that actually segues right into generative orchestration for business logic and actions. So next slide, please.
Karima, quick time check. We are at 10 a.m. PST, so just FYI.
Oh my goodness, how did the time pass so fast? All right, so business logic's super, super important, and we've gone through everything. You can guess where is the full control, topics and interception. You can guess where the AI control is in instructions, and you can guess where the hybrid control is. We talked about topic triggers and interception. So this is just rewriting all the vocabulary that we already know, but it's giving you a page that you can use as you go about these things. So let's get working into the next slide. Okay, click once. Good thing I had some screenshots available so that I can anticipate these kinds of things. And so because I can't do the live demo, and I'd love to come back and do the live demo, or maybe drop the demo somewhere for you guys at the same time as we drop the recording for this, because it was super fun. It was fun to do. It was fun to show. And so I will have that for you, but I do have some screenshots. So all is not lost. So we were going to build the coffee concierge that we saw earlier. So what is that? I have a description for what my coffee concierge was supposed to be, right? And click once, please. Go back one. Okay, so here I had written a description that says, help the users to order and track their coffee refill orders. You can see what it was, right? And so as I'm building, this was my building experience. And as I was building with my first description, the first really useful thing that happened is that I got these suggestions on the right side. With these suggestions on the right side, this is already giving me inspiration for actions that I really should plan for in my agent. So if I haven't planned for those already, I really should plan for it because they're kind of common sense. And it helps me organize a little bit what I wanted to do with the agent. Next slide, please. So once I create that agent, it kept my description, but these automatic instructions were generated. Now, if you look at these instructions, it says, guide users through the process of ordering coffee pod refills for Coffee Co. Like if you just look at that, how are we going to achieve that? Hey, are you clicking? You click very fast. How are we going to achieve that? Right? Anything you put in the instructions has to be paired with like a tool that can be used to achieve that instruction. You can't just do that with words, right? Provide information and recommendation. Okay, maybe the instructions can do that using knowledge. Help users track the status of the orders. Definitely need a tool for that. Remind users when it's time. Hey, that sounds like it's autonomous. Okay, next click, please. So, maintain a friendly, helpful, professional tone. Sure, let's keep that. So we need to organize these instructions, maybe paste them somewhere else. And some part of these instructions are going to be really useful to use in maybe a connected agent. Some of these are going to be useful to create side conversations or combined actions or knowledge or autonomous agents. But you're not going to use the automatically created instructions as is. So be really, really careful of some danger zones. Over engineering is a danger zone. If you're going to micromanage everything that happens and then you have some actions somewhere that do more or less what these instructions say, and it's not the instructions and the actions haven't been created together, or you've totally micromanaged what that action is going to do, the orchestrator doesn't get to do its job. And then there's edge cases that drop off. And under configuring is also a problem because, as I said, hybrid control for generative orchestration means that we give you a bunch of configurations that you can do to make sure that things happen the way they should, that inputs are collected the way they should. And so use those configurations. So don't over engineer and don't under configure, clarify your tasks and your user stories, have a really clear idea of the list of things that your agent should do. Don't just rely on a wall of text for instructions, actually remove them and add them in judiciously when needed. And then start looking at what's going to be your data. Where is it? Like, what kind of data will it be? I don't care where it is, but I just want to know what kind of data it is. And then point number 3. Did you think that one of the first things you would do when you're creating generative orchestration is start with topics? I actually do start with topics. Why? Because topics are kind of magic when you put them in generative orchestration. If you don't do a lift and shift and you actually look at the power of topics in generative orchestration, you see that topics can turn into tools. They have inputs that are AI, they have outputs that are AI. They have descriptions. So the inside of the topic is just the core of the logic that you need, and you can leave the rest of the workload to AI. But that means that you have like a really fast way of creating a tool, and you have a fast way of mocking data inside that tool. And so as you are deciding what your agent should do and all of these purple things on the side that you're seeing, you can go ahead and mock all of these, especially the actions. Some of the things that you don't know if it's going to be knowledge or action. Well, let's see how it works as an action. Mock them up in a topic and start designing and start asking those questions and saying, hey, check my order number, blah, blah, blah. And it's okay, hard code the answers, but you're going to see that the orchestrator is going to pick up 2 actions at a time, and it's gonna do what you ask it, and then you're gonna change the question, and you're like, oh, I should change my description. And while your colleagues who are doing the integrations and setting up the data and setting up your connectors, while they're working on that integration part, you don't have to wait as a designer. You can start designing and creating the paths for the orchestration, doing your hybrid control, intercepting inputs and outputs when needed, and be really ready for when the data is available. So that's a great way to really start. And so I had a tiny demo for you about that. Can you click? Let's see if I had a screenshot of that or not. Ooh, let me make this bigger. Let's see if it is what I think it is. It is what I thought it was. I just made an agent called Coffee Draft, and I created just 2 topics. Almost nothing in the instructions, no knowledge, no tools, no agents, just 2 topics called check pending orders and create my order. They each have a couple of inputs, outputs, and description. And then I started playing with it. And I said, hey, how many pods are in this order? And what's the status of that order? And can I place an order for this? And it started interacting with me, and it started giving me like bigger and bigger, more and more detailed multi-step answers. I could follow the activity map. I could see that it's interpreting my inputs correctly. It's using my outputs correctly. It knows when I say yes, it puts true, like everything is working. And so I can have my tools ready to go and configured. And so that was a great starting point, right? And so then you bring in the tools that you want when you're really clear on what you need. You can tweak your descriptions, your instructions, and then you think about guardrails and overrides and interceptions, because those become a little bit more complex. Click once more, please. So let's
Karima,
talk
time
about
check. We have 20 minutes and some great Q&A as well. So just giving you a quick time check.
So let's try to do the next things in the next 10 minutes. I'm going to spend 2-3 minutes on these things. We'll leave you with the slide deck. And what I wanted to talk about in this is a couple of topics that will happen when you're designing. So guardrails are going to be super, super important. It's what's going to give you the peace of mind that you need. You're going to have AI guardrails. You're going to have topic trigger guardrails. And you're also going to have PII management. And you're going to have solicited PII that you will have arranged for, and you're going to have unsolicited PII that you're going to be really afraid that it's going to leak somewhere. And so how are you going to handle those? So those are all things that we should talk about. And then where is the cutoff zone for your agent? Like, we can't just leave it as say anything to my agent, right? There are zones where you're like, nope, sorry, I'm not talking about that. Right? Just like I'm not going to talk about other companies, I'm only going to talk about Coffee Co. There should be cutoff zones. And if you're making an autonomous agent out of your agent, those cutoffs should be even more strict. Like, as soon as you're not sure about what they're talking about, or if they're going outside of the boundaries, cut it off. And this screen on the right shows one of those famous topic triggers for interception that we were talking about. So if you follow on the top node, it says trigger. On the right side, it says change trigger. All the way on the bottom, it says an AI generated response is about to be sent. That's where I'm intercepting my full AI generated response. You know that complex question that I had asked, that 5-part question? Well, when it's about to be answered is when this topic intercepts it. It goes through an AI prompt that looks at it. It cleans it up of talking about any other company. It adds a funny little comment at the end. It places the message, and it manually ends the conversation so that the orchestration doesn't have to continue working. And as you see on the right side, it added my funny comment, and it says, hey, Carol's coffee cup is empty. Shall we brew up a reorder? And so my personality gets added. And I also have a message that's deterministic. I have a signature at the end, Coffee Co-orchestrator, and that gets added to every single message in a deterministic way, right? All right, so next one. All right, I just wanted to talk about continuous improvement, because everybody at some point, some VP is going to say, hey guys, your system is not agentic because it doesn't continuously improve. We have been waiting for models that self-improve. Why aren't you talking about models that self-improve, right? And, I understand that that is what the future is supposed to look like, that we've been waiting for that. It's also what the past looked like, because in the past we spent a lot of time retraining models and trying to automate the retraining of models. And the truth is that LLMs are getting so powerful that if you just write back data as you use your agents will just get smarter. If I know my users' preferences and I'm constantly orchestrating over their preferences, if I know their CSAT scores for different products and I'm constantly orchestrating over it, my agent is constantly getting smarter, right? So it's really about what you're grounding your work on. And so I asked this question to my agent. And this is a simple agent. It just has, a couple of each thing in it. And I said, hey, fetch all of Carol's order, write her a personalized message, and buy her a complimentary gift and tell her the order number. And it wrote her a beautiful message. If I like how this turned out, I can package this prompt up into an autonomous trigger. And now every time I have a user that has very high loyalty, I can send them a gift with an appreciation email as an autonomous agent using the same agent. I did not change my agent. All I did is I found a prompt that worked with me and I dropped it into a trigger. Next slide, please. All right, that same one, when I dropped a different prompt, I said, get Coffee Co's products that are on sale this week and write a marketing brochure about them, include prices and discounts and fun facts. It wrote this brochure from the right side. This is the exact same agent that's like doing the purchases and everything, right? So if I like this prompt, I'll also drop it into an autonomous trigger. So now my same agent has all the functions that we talked about before, and it has 2 autonomous functions. So these are the kinds of things that you can augment your agent with, especially since it has access to constantly changing and augmenting information. Keep going. So inline agents that we talk about, those can create a lot of value. If you constrain their prompt a lot, and then in that constraint, you pick the tools, and it can only do 2 things, and then it's totally constrained, it can be a very, very safe way to do transactions. Also, if you don't constrain it very much and you just give it a little bit of knowledge and a task, like figure out some sort of a itinerary for a person, it can be super chatty, and it can look like we're giving people a lot of AI to play with in this enterprise grade system, right? So how do we balance chattiness and constrained inline agents? Click. Okay, so here I have an inline agent. It's like a child agent that's part of the same thing. It's one of those 2 agents, and this one helps choose a product. So when somebody says, "Hey, I don't know what to buy," the system's going to go look at your history. It's going to go look at what's on sale. It's going to give you some suggestions. It's going to have a little conversation with you and give you the top 3 recommendation of what you should buy. Click. Now, I also have an inline agent that's an order update agent. Now, that one really should not be chatty. It should be very, very business. And it's exactly what it does. If you look on at the activity map in the left, that agent finds orders, finds specific products, and updates an order. And it knows exactly what it has to do. And it tells Kathy things in a structured way, asks Carol, you know, what to do next. Simple instructions, orders are successfully updated. How can I make this better? Add a lot more confirmations, and you totally can. Every tool has a little checkbox that says confirm at every step. And now you have a very constrained child agent that was created by just dropping 2 tools in a description and a checkbox that I didn't put in for confirmations. Or you can have a very chatty agent where people can just like be creative in figuring out what they want to buy. All right, next. This one is homework for you. It's going to be really fun if you want to try a use case. It's travel, where you have an open-ended chatty part to decide your itinerary. You have an important part that generative orchestration should do to find all the proper bookings. And then you have a more deterministic part with topics where you actually do the payment. So this would be a really fun one to try. Keep going. Auto starting conversations. Remember how my agent just went and auto started a conversation? And I told you that now we can have the orchestrator calling a topic, but you can also have a topic calling the orchestrator. Now, when you're calling the orchestrator, this is not like a function call. As I said, it's very, very conversational. You have to go and put yourselves in the shoes of the agent who is looking for somebody to tell them something conversationally. So instead of saying, find the orders for Carol, I said, hi, I'm Carol. Find all my pending orders. If none are pending, then find a previous order that has shipped and asked if I would like to reorder. It's a very, very complex prompt. It sounds like an instruction. It augments the instructions that already exist in an agent. And as soon as you log in, it says, hi, Carol, you have 4 pending orders. They're all in pending status. Let me know if you need more assistance. And then right away, it gives you a pun and puts you at ease, right? And it shows that it's competent, but then it's also funny. So now you've kind of, established your personality. And in just one prompt, you were able to call the orchestrator. And why did you need to do that? Because when I was looking at that plan we were making at the beginning, and I said, when people do a refill, you know, sometimes we just want people to already know what's available. They shouldn't ask to do a refill. Maybe we should tell them. All right, click again. The other thing that I was thinking about is when they actually say, I want a refill, there's two things that need to be done. You need to find the orders, and then you need to place an order. So if there's two things that need to be done, am I going to do that in a topic? Am I going to like find a way to tell the instructions, the general instructions to do that? But then like that would be extra instructions that would blur the rest of my agent. But now I can have a topic that calls the orchestrator with a very complex task for when people says refill. And so it's a 3-node topic that allows me to do a complex refill orchestration call. And so I think I'm ending on time. I really wanted to recap the fact that I'm trying to reorganize all the information that you're getting about control and AI and orchestration, and reminding you that there's 3 distinct AI SaaS services in Copilot Studio, that there are 3 levels of AI control that you can harness, and that there are 3 areas of AI agent impact that you can focus on. And these 3 in particular, generative orchestration, hybrid in AI, with AI, and business process, is the part where you're going to engage for the longest with your enterprise business counterparts for your design.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Karima. And thank you guys for attending. Have a good morning, evening, afternoon, and night. And like I said, hopefully we see you next week.